I was happy playing in the backyard as a child. I was unhappy having to do those dreaded, nasty chores. I was happiest about my passion of baseball, and unhappy when I had to do things that took away from fantasizing, reading, and more importantly, practicing baseball. The job I detested the most was sweeping the sidewalk and driveway and garage after my father mowed the lawn every Saturday. It was hot, and I was dirty at the end. However, when I was done, my father left me alone enough for me to practice baseball in the front yard. One day, when I was 6, I got this wild idea, which is always dangerous. I was going to practice my home run swing on the tree in our front yard. I was going to perfect that home run swing that would take my team to the World Series. So I got the broom as my bat, and I crouched, ready to get that swing. Now, my theory was flawed, because I had the assumption that the broom with the diameter of this was going to have no impact on a tree trunk like this. You already know what's going to happen. I didn't. I crouched, got ready, and swung. The head of the broom went 3 houses down. Oh my God, my dad files, I'm in trouble. So I retrieved the 2 pieces of the broom, and I got rid of the evidence. Avoided my father for the rest of the day, or as long as I could, until he caught up with me. Ronald, I need the broom. You had it last. Do you know where it is? No, Dad, I don't. Because I knew what was going to happen. He's smart. He searched high and low until he discovered the 2 pieces of the broom underneath the washing machine where I carefully hid them. God, yes, Ronald, what did you do to the broom? What happened? I don't know. For the next 2 weeks, my allowance went to pay for a new broom, and it took me about that long to recover from the pain on my backside. A leader is an influencer first and foremost. That is your responsibility to help people understand what is the correct path to take and what should we not do. And more importantly, what is the path to lead us to greater success? Many people who are not leaders don't understand that. And yet, as a leader, you have tools available to you. Of course, your words and your actions and behaviors. You have the expectations that you set for people, and you have the rules and policies that you enact about what is appropriate and what is not. I'm here to explain to you that you have access to an even powerful, easy-to-implement tool, and that is your personal stories, with a bit of humor. Now, you're probably thinking, where do the stories come from? And I'm not funny. To show you the power of stories, let's just start with my story about breaking the broom. Assume this is a seminar on leadership, and I finished telling you that story. What moral or lesson about leadership would you take away? Let's hear a couple of you shout out. What message would you take from my story about breaking the broom? Tell the truth. Excellent. Think it through. Take responsibility. Guess what? At the age of 6, I did none of those. So I use the longer version of this story about breaking the broom, to illustrate to leaders that when they lead by fear, people will lie, they will hide the truth from you, and they will hide the evidence of misgivings. And as a leader, you can't afford that. To show up and influence others, you need them to be enrolled and engaged. The reason that I am presenting this to you is not to showcase myself as a storyteller, but rather to show you the power of the natural law of leadership. A good leader influences, and I know that you want to be a good leader and even a great leader. You influence even when you're not in the room, and stories stick around. They last. You by now have 2 questions that you'd like to get answered, which I will in our time together. The first one is, why do humor stories work? Why are they an effective tool to get your people to follow the direction that you want them to? And then the most important question is, where did these stories come from? So let's start with the why. The first reason is that people who are not leaders think leadership is a serious and sober business. Not. Leadership is about people, and you know people can be people. In fact, one of the best tech tools you have accessible to you in terms of communication is through humor. The second reason, once you're a leader, because you're very visible, people put you on a pedestal and expect you to be perfect. And when you fall down, as you will, what's wrong with you? But when you share your stories of when you fell down and picked yourself up and recovered and learned something, they go, I get it. You're human just like me. And you connect at a personal level. The third reason is stories are universal to every human being. We tell stories, we listen to stories, we retain stories, and more importantly, they stick around for a long time and get repeated. And the fourth reason has to do with the echo effect. As a leader, everything you do, whether you realize it or not, has an echo that repeats and repeats and repeats. And you want this echo to be supportive, positive, uplifting messages. And through your funny stories, you're able to do that. I'll give you an example of the echo effect. One of the things that I was most happiest at high school was dancing. Every Friday I went to the dance, and I would show off my moves, the twist, the watusi, the pony, everything, all the stuff, including the worm, but I'm not going to do that on this floor. I don't want to ruin my nice clothes. But I was missing a key piece of feedback that I didn't acquire until I was 28, when I had children. My family was attending a wedding, and my wife and I had just finished dancing. We're coming off the dance floor, and my 5-year-old daughter, Darcy, and I love 5-year-olds because they are so honest. She intercepted her mom, tugged at her mom's dress, and said, "What's wrong with Daddy?" "What do you mean, sweetie?" "He looks like he's in pain. It's embarrassing us." "Well, that's because he has no rhythm. He absolutely cannot dance at all." So Darcy replied, "That's why he's dancing the wounded surfer." In her imaginative mind, she saw me bouncing on a surfboard with a broken back. Darcy is 38. She continues to tell that story. I'm now a grandparent, and my wife and I spend lots of time with our grandchildren. And so we were visiting Darcy one day, playing on the floor with Naomi and Rael. And Rael, who at that time was the age of 3, stood up from what he was doing, and he heard some music, and he started doing this. And Naomi, who at the age of 5 is just like all 5-year-olds, very honest, she yells out, "Mommy, Papa, look at, Raphael's doing the grandpa dance. The wounded surfer." We're now into our second generation of that story. And that story will be repeated long after I am gone. And that's the echo effect. Just imagine you're walking around your office after a policy meeting, and there's 2 sets of people. There's John that was in your meeting, and Jane. John's explaining to an employee what was in the meeting, and John says, in Policy Manual 47, on page 32, there was this interesting fact that I want to share with you. And you overhear Jane saying to an employee, "Oh my gosh, the CEO told this ridiculous story of when he crashed his car, and it was amazing." Which scenario is more likely? The second one. And you want those echoes to be one of a compassionate, caring leader who knows what he's doing or she's doing. So let's answer where do you find your stories now that we know the why? You go back in history. You did the same things that I did. And so if you mine those stories, you will find that they have a point. And you're probably thinking, "But Ron, I'm not funny. And there's no way I'm going to tell embarrassing stories about what I did back then." And at that I answer, "Get over yourself." Those stories need to be heard. We need to understand who you are, where you came from, and the stuff that you are made of. Grady Jim Robinson, one of the greatest storytellers I've ever heard, told his secret about where his stories came from. He said, and I followed his advice, take a blank piece of paper and draw your childhood house. Outline all the rooms. Start with your bedroom. Draw the kitchen, the bathroom, all the rooms that you spent time in, and the yards that you played in. And he said, you will recover memories of something that happened in every one of those rooms. I did. 10 stories popped up. The first one that came to mind was the day that I was Superman. I wanted to fly. I wanted to be the hero that Superman is. I wanted to see the stars. Getting on the top bunk bed of my bed, I put a towel on, and I flew straight down. Bam! I saw stars. Mission accomplished. He also suggested that you draw an outline of where you went to grade school. First grade, second grade, third grade, which I did. And suddenly, other stories came out that were in the playground or a particular classroom. I recall with fondness my first grade teacher, Miss Green, who taught me about honesty, best practices, but the most important impact she had on me was she predicted my future, down to exactly what I'm doing today. Miss Green was not a psychic. She just wrote on my report card why she failed me in art. Ronald is unable to color inside the lines. To this day, I do not color inside the lines. Have you ever heard of a humorist CPA? Yeah. And as a leader, you need to color outside the lines too, because the path that you lead people to can be difficult and challenging. It's like herding cats. And more importantly, you have to do the things that others are unwilling. And so I took his advice, and I did it from 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20. I did my first few workplaces, and over 60 stories came out, which then I decided to write about. Now, where does the humor come in, you're probably wondering? Well, Christina Marie Kimball suggests to her friends and clients to engage in morning pages, which is basically taking 20, 30 minutes every morning, 3 blank pieces of paper, and write whatever comes to mind. And that's what I did because I was already doing it. I took Grady Jim's suggestion, and I would put the title of the story, like Breaking the Broom, and without edit, it would come out. And I saw things in a different perspective, a different light. You can imagine my father's face. I imagine Mrs. Green's reaction for the things that I did and stuff like that. And it was amazing what came out. And now you're saying, but Ron, I'm not funny. I didn't think I was when I started the process. And the fun comes out because of the formula that all comedians know. Pain plus time equals funny. You had the pain. You wrecked a car. You did dumb things that I did. Now, from time, you have a different perspective. You can see it in perfect clarity because your ego's not in it. No judgment. And the funny comes in is as you write about it, you can recall things. You can assume what the other person was thinking. You can see their reaction. You can go back to what you might have been thinking at the time, and the funny happens. And so I encourage you to tell your stories. Now, before I turn it over to questions, there's 2 actions I would encourage you to take. The first one is as soon as you can, in the next 48 hours, get a blank piece of paper, outline your home at the age of 5, and I bet 5 stories will pop out. Don't stop there. Write about them. The second action item is as you leave here and drive to your home or your office, please think about my closing story and ask yourself, if I had told this story, if what Ron told me was my story, what lesson would I want to teach the people that follow me? What important element of leadership would I want them to understand? So let me close, before I go to the questions, close with this story that illustrates everything I've shown you today. As you can tell, I love speaking about leadership. I'm quite passionate. Most of the time, people see me as a serious, sober person until I get here, and then I go crazy. Right? Consumes a lot of energy. One day, not too long ago, I was in Missoula, Montana. 8-hour presentation. I was exhausted. When I'm exhausted, I don't make good decisions. I know that about myself. I still make decisions anyway. So I went to dinner at the restaurant. I went right from the venue, still dressed as I am today. And I sat down and ordered a salad. A beautiful, beautiful spinach salad. And the chef or whoever made it put at the top of the salad raw onion rings with a little slit in them. I'm about to put my fork in, and my strategic brain says, Ronald, please get rid of those onions. You're in dangerous territory. My tactical brain says, shut up, eat, you're hungry, you're tired. I put my fork in, and there is an onion ring on it. My strategic brain again warns me, you're in dangerous territory. You're going to get yourself, you're going to embarrass yourself. Get rid of that onion. There's a hot tub waiting for you. Hurry up. I put my fork in my mouth, and the next thing I know, the onion ring is coming out of my mouth down to my chin. Last chance, get rid of it. You're going to embarrass yourself. Chew your way out of it. Start chewing. The onion has now flipped, and it is now sticking out of my nose, going from my mouth, the perfect C. I'm hoping no one notices. What's even worse is there was honey mustard dressing, and now I have yellow stuff dripping from my nose down to my upper lip, and I'm hoping no one notices. I'm sitting next to a family with a 5-year-old. I love 5-year-olds because they are so honest. And as I'm about to take the onion out, the child looks over and sees me and yells, "Look, Mom, gross!" Now 40 sets of eyes are looking at this professional dressed in this suit with an onion up his nose and yellow stuff hanging down. How do you recover from that? I'm happy to tell you, 5 years of counseling, I can now eat an onion, and when I have a salad, my eye doesn't tick.